today marks the 50th anniversary of a novel that introduced the world to a writer who would become the biggest name in the genre and to a character who would go on to make cinematic and literary history. That's right, on April 5th, 1974, Stephen King's Carrie was released into the world, and with it, a legend was born. But it almost didn't happen. Had it not been for King's wife Tabitha, the writer may have remained just odd Mr. Steve King, an English teacher at Hampden Academy by day and a frustrated writer by night. Tabitha saw the spark of something more within discarded pages she found in her husband's wastepaper basket. Rescuing the manuscript, she urged Stephen to persevere. This act of faith would become the catalyst for one of the most remarkable tales of the annals of literature.
I was teaching, and that presented a problem for me, and the money constraints presented a problem, and so I threw Carrie away, and my wife fished it out of the wastebasket and said, "You ought to go on." And I said, "It's too long, honey. Won't be a short story." And she liked it. And I said, "Well, what do you like about it?" And she said, "It's not like your usual man fiction at all."
Carrie was published in the spring of 1974, but upon release, it faced its own underdog story. Initially, the hardcover edition sold modestly, barely hinting at the phenomenon the book would become. But then, Doubleday took a leap of faith, purchasing the paperback rights for $400,000. That's the equivalent of nearly $2.5 million today. And suddenly, Carrie was everywhere.
And as I walked back to my seat, for the first time in my life, I saw a woman with one of my books. It was Carrie in paperback, which had just come out. But I was drunk, and I thought to myself in an immensely clever, drunken fashion, well, what I'll do is I will approach this woman and in a very casual way say, how do you like that book? And when she tells me how much she likes it, I'll say, I wrote it and I'll sign it for you. So I approached her, and in immensely clever, drunken fashion, blowing gin in her face, I said, how do you like that book? And she said, I think it's shitty. So I went and sat down, and that was the end of that.
Though the book was popular, it was Brian De Palma's 1976 film adaptation that truly catapulted Carrie and King into the stratosphere of pulp culture. Sissy Spacek's haunting portrayal of the tormented teen with telekinetic powers, it became the stuff of legend, etching Carrie White into the hearts and nightmares of millions of viewers. Carrie opened the floodgates for Stephen King, heralding the arrival of a master storyteller, yet its significance extends far beyond its contribution to King's career. The novel challenged the conventions of horror, weaving themes of power, alienation, and revenge into the fabric of the genre. It tells a story that still resonates and is even based in reality.
As a student, I knew a couple of girls who were at the very bottom of the social pecking order. You know, high school is probably the most savage social caste system that America has. You know, it's very divided, and popularity becomes very important, and it's very difficult for adolescents because they're not emotionally grounded yet. And these girls were the absolute bottom, and one of them later committed suicide. But I had a chance to watch that, you know, that ostracism in progress. And then later, as a teacher, I saw the same thing from the other side of the desk. Those two things came together for me, along with a number of articles that I'd seen about the possibility that psychokinetic phenomena, if it existed, probably existed in teenagers and probably existed in disturbed teenage girls. And I thought this would make a terrific book, so I wrote it.
From a novel that nearly never was to a cornerstone of horror literature, Carrie showed the world the power of the underdog. King's journey from a struggling author to a household name with more than 65 novels, novellas, hundreds of short stories, countless film adaptations. It is something truly to celebrate. Tell me in the comments what your favorite Stephen King story is, and let's raise a glass to the maestro of the macabre, because